the first thing you notice isn't the silence, it's the way the silence breathes. Imagine the forest at night. The creek runs, but under it there's a pulse, like a second heartbeat that doesn't belong. The air presses too close, and then, just when you think you're alone, a figure stands at the edge of the firelight, watching. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the Granny's Whisper channel, where the darkest stories come alive every night. Tell me in the comments, do you listen in complete darkness or do you leave a small light on? And have you ever felt something watching you when no one was there? We had come to the forest to escape, my old friend and I, tired city men who thought camping might clear our heads. We packed rods, food, a tent, and laughter that we hadn't felt in months. By afternoon, we reached the creek, water shining like silver under the trees. For a while, everything was simple. Cast the line, pull the trout, laugh at the splash. The smoke from the fire curled upward, carrying the sweet, oily smell of fish skin blistering on the flames. And then he appeared. He came out of the trees the way a shadow does when you strike a match. First the outline, then the detail. Scruffy beard, clothes torn in ways that suggested long wear, not accident. A dog padded behind him, ribs showing faintly through its fur. His eyes shifted too quickly, never landing long. "Hey there," he called, his voice gravel rolling in the throat. "Looks like you had some luck." We offered him food. It was habit. When another wanderer finds your fire, you make space. His name was Joe. He ate as if he hadn't touched warmth in months, the dog resting its muzzle on his knee. But between every bite, his eyes flicked to our gear, measuring, counting. Still, when he stood to leave, he smiled and patted the dog. "You boys sleep light," he said. "Strange things in these woods." We laughed, but we didn't sleep light. I woke in the black hours, the time when a creek sounds louder than it should, when canvas walls breathe with every gust. A sound snapped me up, footsteps, slow, deliberate, circling. I eased open the flap, and there he was, Joe, standing, motionless. The fire long gone out, yet I could see the gleam of something in his hand. Before I could speak, he raised his arm. The gunshot tore the night in half. My friend screamed, clutching his face, blood rushing between his fingers. I lurched up, but the second shot hit me square in the back. The third cracked into my neck, a hot eruption that sprayed down my chest. I staggered, choking on the iron taste. My fingers pressed instinctively against the hole, slick warmth gushing with each heartbeat. And Joe, his face blank, not anger, not pleasure, just a man doing what he thought the night demanded, stepped forward, raising the gun again. My friend lunged. He wrestled the barrel sideways, the shot exploding in the trees. For a moment, chaos. The dog barking, my ragged gasps, fireflies of light dancing in my vision. Then somehow, he broke free and ran toward the truck. Keys jangling in blood-soaked hands, I stumbled after him, barely holding my neck together, every step dizzy. Behind us, Joe's voice rose, low and furious, though the words tangled with the ringing in my ears. The engine roared. Tires spun in dirt. The truck lurched forward, headlights catching Joe's face for a fraction of a second. His eyes not human in that flash, something older and colder, before the darkness swallowed him again. We barreled down the mountain road, the night turning into a blur of shadow and cliff edges. My friend's mouth bled freely, swollen, words slurring into groans. I tried to steer when the wheels skidded near a drop, vision swimming in waves of black. Somehow we held to the road. The forest gave way to scattered houses, porch lights like tiny lighthouses in the void. We stumbled out, banging on a door, collapsing against wood. A woman answered, her face frozen in terror when she saw the red we carried. "Please," I rasped, my voice not even mine. "He shot us. He's still out there." Blankets, phone calls, sirens cutting through the dark, hands pressing, lifting, carrying. And through it all, one thought gnawed its way deeper than the bullets. Why had he said sleep light? What did he know of these woods that we didn't? Later, they told us his real name, his long trail of violence across forests like this. They said he died running, the truck wrecked in the mountains. But that doesn't quiet the memory, because when I close my eyes, I still see him. Not Joe, not a man at all, but something the forest had worn like a mask. And every time I hear footsteps outside at night, I wonder if we really escaped, or if he simply let us go to carry his story into the light. Some stories are meant to keep you awake. Others are meant to make you listen for the silence and what breathes beneath it. And the woods, they still call. The forest doesn't forget. That's the first lesson. We thought we left Joe behind on that mountain road, buried in blood and broken steel. But the forest had other plans, because when the body falls, something else rises. The nightmares began weeks after the hospital. I'd wake drenched in sweat, gasping, clutching at the phantom hole in my neck. Sometimes I swore I still felt warm blood pulsing between my fingers. The sound of the creek haunted me, running water that whispered my name in a voice not quite human. My friend, still scarred and stitched, admitted he heard it too. And though we promised never to return to those woods, something drew us back. Curiosity is hunger with teeth. It gnaws until you answer. So one spring, when the city pressed too close again, we loaded the truck. Not for fishing this time, not for laughter, but because we had questions. What had Joe meant with his words? Why did it feel like more than just a madman's warning? The road twisted upward into the same dark embrace of trees. Branches scraped the windows as if eager hands were reaching to stop us. My friend drove in silence, jaw stiff, eyes never leaving the path. I watched the tree line. Shadows moved wrong, bending against the light. By dusk, we reached the old creek. The campsite was still there, though nature had tried to reclaim it. Grass sprouted through the fire pit. Moss clung to the stones, yet it didn't feel abandoned. The air pressed down heavier here, thick with memory. We built no fire. Instead, we sat in the dimming light, listening. First, the chirp of crickets. Then, as night fully closed in, a different sound. Soft steps in the brush, a rhythm not belonging to deer, not to fox. Too heavy, too slow. My heart hammered, but my friend whispered, "Wait." And then we saw it. At the edge of the clearing, just beyond reach of moonlight, a figure stood. Same height, same build, same tattered beard. The dog at his side, ribs sharp under skin. But Joe had died. We knew this. The papers had printed his accident. His grave had been filled. Yet there he was, watching. "Evening," the figure rasped, voice like gravel over stone. My skin went cold, not because of the words, but because his lips hadn't moved. The sound had slipped out of the trees themselves, surrounding us from every direction. We froze. Neither of us spoke. My friend gripped the handle of his knife, though I knew steel wouldn't matter here. Joe, or what wore his shape, took a step forward. The dog's eyes glowed faintly like coals carried in sockets. "I told you to sleep light," the voice said again, cracking with static. The world tilted. The creek hissed louder, a language twisting in the rush. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Then my friend snapped. He hurled the knife. It spun, gleamed, vanished into the dark figure. Yet nothing fell, no cry, just silence swallowing us whole. The shape dissolved, one moment present, the next devoured by shadow. Only the dog's faint growl lingered, then faded. We didn't sleep that night. We sat back to back until dawn, every twig crack sending jolts through our nerves. And when the light finally broke, the clearing looked ordinary again, empty, harmless. But on the trunk of a tree, carved deep into the bark, were words that hadn't been there before. "You came back." We left the forest that morning, but I carried the truth with me. Joe hadn't just been a man. He had been chosen, worn like a coat by something older, something that didn't die with the crash. And now it knew our names. The forest never forgets. But worse, it never forgives. The second night after we returned from the creek, I woke to the sound of dripping. Not the kind from a leaky pipe or rain tapping a gutter, but thicker, slower, like blood falling onto stone. My room was dark, though I always left a lamp burning faintly since the hospital. The bulb flickered now, its glow shivering across the walls. I sat up, clutching my throat, the scar there itching and burning as if it had been freshly torn. The dripping grew louder. I swung my feet to the floor, cold, too cold, as though the wood had been soaking in ice. I bent forward, expecting to see some spill, a busted pipe. Instead, on the boards beneath my bed, lay a trail of wet footprints, bare, large, leading away from where I slept and stopping directly at the window. The glass was closed, locked, but pressed against the inside pane was a single bloody handprint. I didn't scream, not out loud. My lungs seized, breath rattling. Somewhere deep in the house, the floorboards creaked. Slow, dragging steps, weight shifting from one side to the other. They circled, they lingered, and then they stopped directly outside my bedroom door. A whisper slipped under the crack. "Sleep light." The bulb above me shattered. Glass rained down, slicing my arm, and in that split second of darkness, I thought I saw his silhouette in the corner, shoulders bent, the dog at his knee. But when I flicked my lighter and the flame caught, the corner was empty. My friend called me the next morning. His voice was a wreck, hoarse, trembling. "You saw him, didn't you?" I froze. "What do you mean?" He was in my house too, same words, same damn voice. I woke up with mud on the sheets and paw prints across the floor. The line crackled like someone else was breathing into the receiver with us. We hung up at the same time, afraid to say more. That day, every sound clung to me. The buzz of fluorescent lights in the office felt like whispers pitched just below understanding. Every reflection in glass looked a half-second delayed. By evening, I swore the shadows in the hallway stretched toward me longer than they should. I tried not to sleep that night, but exhaustion crushed me. Somewhere between waking and dreaming, I heard the creek again. The water didn't babble, it chanted my name over and over, a cadence as old as the rocks themselves. The air smelled of moss and rust, of smoke that had never gone out, and in the half-dream, I saw him crouched at the river's edge, cupping water in his hands, drinking deep. When he looked up, his face wasn't Joe's anymore. It was mine. I woke choking, hands clamped to my scar, fingernails digging until blood rose. But the worst part wasn't the dream. It was the dirt under my nails, damp and black, as if I had crawled out of the earth. The following morning, my friend came to me. He hadn't slept. His face was pale, jaw trembling. He pulled something from his jacket, a photograph, wrinkled and smudged. Look at this. It was a picture of the creek, the one we'd taken years ago, back when that trip was supposed to be about fish and laughter. But the photo had changed. At the far edge of the frame, where only trees had been, there now stood a figure, blurred but clear enough, Joe, or the thing that wore him, and his eyes were staring directly at the camera, though he had never been there that day. I dropped the picture. My friend whispered, "He's not gone. He followed us home." We didn't argue. We didn't laugh it off like men trying to be rational, because we both knew the truth. The forest had marked us. The bullets, the wounds, the chase down that mountain. It hadn't been the end. It had been the beginning. And if Joe was the vessel, then we were the next. We tried to burn the photograph. That night, after my friend showed it to me, we stood in his backyard with a small metal bin and a bottle of lighter fluid. The air was still, the stars hidden by low clouds that felt closer than the sky should allow. The match struck. Fire licked across the glossy surface, curling the edges inward, devouring the image of the creek. But just before the photo blackened to ash, we saw something change. The blurred figure of Joe wasn't shrinking in the flames. It was moving, his head lifted, his mouth opening wider than it should, as though the fire itself gave him breath. The flames roared higher, a column of heat that rattled the bin. My friend cursed, stamping at it, but the blaze refused to dim until the picture was gone entirely. Even then, the smoke didn't rise. It coiled downward, sinking into the soil around our shoes, leaving behind the stench of wet dog and rust. That night, I didn't go home. I slept, or tried to, on my friend's couch. The clock ticked louder than it should, each second a knock on the walls of my skull. At 3:11 a.m., the house shifted. The boards groaned, the pipes sighed, and from the kitchen came the sound of water running. We crept toward it together. The faucet gushed clear at first, then dark, thick, almost black. The smell hit us before the sight did. Blood. Metallic, sweet, unmistakable. It filled the sink, splattering onto the floor, spreading across the tiles like a living thing. And then the dog growled. The sound came from under the table, low, guttural, vibrating through the wood. We crouched, holding our breaths. Eyes glinted back at us, glowing like embers. Not one pair, several. Shapes hunched in the shadows, their backs rising, bones twisting under skin too thin, their mouths stretched open, teeth too many, too long. We bolted, slammed the door, pressed our shoulders to it as the wood shook with impact from the other side. Claws raked, whimpers turned to snarls, then silence. When we dared to look again, the kitchen was empty. The floor was dry. The faucet no longer ran. Only the faint scent of smoke lingered, as though the house itself had exhaled. We didn't sleep at all. By morning, both of us looked like men twice our age. "I think," my friend whispered, his voice cracking, "I think he's trying to wear us, like a coat, just like he wore Joe." I didn't answer. I couldn't, because he wasn't wrong. Every night since the forest, I had dreamed of standing in water, holding a gun, raising my arm. Sometimes I pulled the trigger, sometimes I didn't. But always, when I looked down, the body wasn't a stranger's. It was my friend's. And then, last night, it was mine. The forest doesn't need to kill you where you stand. It follows. It feeds on your waking hours, stalks your sleep until it threads itself through your veins. By dawn, we packed, not to leave town because we knew by then it wasn't that easy, but to go back to the creek, to where it had begun, because something in us, whether madness or curse, believed we might find the route. The drive back was worse than the first. The road narrowed, trees knitting overhead into a tunnel of green and black. The deeper we went, the weaker the light became, as though the forest swallowed it whole. Birds fell silent, wind stilled, and then the whispers started. Not from outside, from the radio. The dial was off, yet static fizzed through the speakers. Within it, faint voices rose, chanting in a rhythm that mirrored the creek's rush. The words weren't English. They weren't anything I'd known, but their meaning crawled straight into the marrow of me. You came back. You came back. My friend's hands shook on the wheel. Tell me you hear it too. I nodded. The static cut. A single voice, clear as the gunshot that had once ripped me open. Sleep light. The truck died. Engine silent. Headlights flickered and vanished. We coasted to a stop in the middle of the road, surrounded by blackness so deep it felt like water. And then, ahead, the glow of a campfire, no one around, just flame, steady and waiting, in the place where Joe had first stepped into our lives. We should have turned back. We should have run. But we opened the doors. We stepped out, and the forest breathed us in. The fire crackled in the clearing, but no one fed it. The flames rose in steady tongues, orange and hungry, yet the wood beneath never blackened, never broke. My friend and I stood at the edge of the glow, unable to step closer, unable to step away. The forest pressed around us like a living wall, trees bending inward as though they leaned to listen. My scar throbbed. Every pulse in my neck echoed the snap of that night years ago. The wound wasn't open, yet I felt the heat of blood sliding down my chest. I pressed my hand there and found it wet. When I pulled my fingers away, they shone dark in the firelight. "Do you see that?" my friend whispered. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking across the fire. The figure was back. Joe, or what had borrowed his shape, stood beyond the flames. His face was clearer now, less human. His eyes, too wide, his jaw unhinged, hanging like a mask not meant for the skull beneath. The dog at his side trembled with every breath, bones jutting sharp beneath fur stretched too thin. Neither of them cast shadows. I tried to speak, but the words withered in my throat. Only a rasp escaped. The figure tilted its head, and the fire bent with it, swaying as though pulled by a tide. "You brought him back," the voice said, though the lips didn't move. The words came from the trees, the dirt, the fire itself, the one who ran, the one who screamed. My friend took a step forward before I could stop him. "What do you want?" he shouted. His voice cracked in the night. The dog barked once, a hollow, thunderous sound that shook the ground. Then silence fell again, thicker than before, a silence that made my ears ring. "What do you want?" he repeated. The figure's mouth opened wider, splitting up into the cheeks, stretching until it was a wound rather than a face. From the void inside, a whisper seeped. A place to rest. The fire roared higher, throwing sparks like stars that hung in the air without falling. The heat singed my skin, but I couldn't move, my feet rooted into the earth as though the soil had risen around my ankles. My friend staggered back, clutching his chest. "It's inside me," he gasped. His eyes rolled white, his breath rasping as if something pressed on his lungs. "Help me!" I reached for him, but the fire surged between us. A wall of flame that forced me to retreat. Through the blaze, I saw him collapse, hands clawing at his throat, his face twisted, and for an instant, just one blink, I didn't see him at all. I saw Joe. The fire collapsed into itself, vanishing as suddenly as it had risen. The clearing plunged into darkness. I stumbled forward, groping for my friend, but the ground was empty where he had fallen. Only the sound of the creek remained, louder now, rushing like blood in my ears. "Where are you?" I shouted, but the trees swallowed my voice. Then I heard it, not from ahead, from behind me. His voice, my friend's voice. "I'm right here." I turned. He stood at the edge of the clearing. Same clothes, same face, but the eyes, too wide, glowing faintly like coals. His smile pulled wrong, as though skin had been stretched over a frame that didn't quite fit. And at his heel, the dog sat, waiting, watching. My throat closed. The scar burned hotter, pulsing with every word as he whispered, "Sleep light." The forest around us sighed, every tree groaning in unison, every leaf trembling as though stirred by the same hidden breath. The darkness pressed closer, wrapping the clearing tight, sealing us in, and I realized then that the forest didn't just want him. It didn't just want Joe. It wanted both of us. He moved like a man wearing his own body for the first time, every step too slow, too deliberate, as if the ground had to remind him where to place his feet. His smile didn't fade. His eyes didn't blink. I wanted to tell myself this wasn't my friend, but his voice betrayed me. It was his tone, his cadence, every syllable soaked with the years we'd known each other. Only now it was stretched thin, as if someone else were pulling the strings of his tongue. "Don't you see?" he whispered, stepping closer. The dog rose beside him, its ribs moving in and out with a breath that sounded more like the rasp of wind through a cave. "We're not meant to leave. The woods, they kept us, even when we ran." I backed away, my heel catching on a root. My body was trembling, my scar pounding so hard I felt each beat echo in my teeth. The clearing tilted, sky and earth flipping like a coin in the dark. He crouched low, head cocked like an animal. You can feel it too, can't you? The weight, the hunger. It's not me, not Joe. It's older. It's everywhere. His jaw slackened. From his throat came a sound no man should make, a layered chorus, voices tangled together, men, women, children, all whispering in unison. "Stay with us." The trees bent inward with the sound. Branches scraped like fingernails against bark. The creek rose higher, water slapping rocks with the rhythm of a heartbeat. The air thickened with the smell of iron and moss. I staggered backward, desperate, fumbling for anything, a branch, a stone, a weapon. My hand landed on a broken length of wood, sharp at one end. Useless, I knew, against whatever wore my friend's face. But I clutched it anyway. He laughed, or maybe the forest laughed through him. His eyes narrowed, glowing hotter, and for a moment I saw something shift beneath his skin. a shadow rippling under flesh, bones reshaping, as if another frame was trying to crawl out. "You can fight," he said softly, "but you'll only make it worse. They chose me." "And they'll choose you." He lunged. I swung the branch wildly, catching his shoulder. The impact was dull, too soft, as if I'd struck wet earth. He barely flinched. His hand shot out, fingers clamping around my wrist with strength that wasn't human. Bones popped. Pain surged up my arm. I screamed, dropping the branch. The dog circled behind me, growling low, the sound vibrating through my legs. I felt its breath on my calf, hot, rancid, dripping. Panic surged. I drove my free hand into his chest, pushing with everything I had. For an instant, his grip loosened. I broke free, stumbling back into the trees. Branches whipped my face, tore at my arms. I ran blind, the forest closing in from all sides. Behind me, his voice followed, not shouting, whispering, always whispering. "Sleep light, sleep light, sleep light." I didn't know how far I ran. Minutes or hours twisted together. The forest never changed, each tree a mirror of the last, each shadow waiting with open jaws. My lungs burned, my legs shook, but I didn't stop until the ground gave way beneath me. I crashed down an embankment, rolling into the shallow edge of the creek. The water was ice against my skin, but it wasn't clean. It pulsed warm, thick, red against my palms. The current hissed my name, dragging at my clothes, pulling me deeper. And then I heard the footsteps, slow, patient, coming closer. I looked up. Across the water at the top of the bank stood my friend, or what had been my friend. The firelight that had vanished before now flickered faintly around him, outlining his body in a halo that wasn't light but shadow. His eyes glowed steady. The dog stood at his side, teeth bared in a grin too wide. "You can run," he said. His voice carried easily over the water. "But you're already marked. The forest knows your name. It won't let you leave again." He stepped down the bank, bare feet sinking into the mud, the creek rising to meet him as though eager to swallow him whole. And I realized then, this wasn't just possession, it was inheritance. The water clutched at my legs like hands. I kicked, staggered to the far bank, scrambling on all fours up the mud as the creek hissed louder, as if furious that I'd slipped its grasp. My chest heaved, lungs dragging in air that smelled of rot and wet stone. Behind me, the splashing grew steady. He was wading through the creek, not hurried, not clumsy. Each step sounded too heavy for water, as though the current itself parted for him. "Don't fight it," he called, his voice deep and doubled, as if something else spoke in perfect time with him. "It's easier if you let the forest take you." I bolted into the trees. Branches clawed my face, roots twisted beneath my boots, but I didn't care. The forest moved with me or against me. It was impossible to tell. Every shadow stretched long and thin, reaching, writhing, snapping back. The ground was wrong too. No matter how far I ran, I always ended back on the same narrow trail, the same moss-covered stone rising like a crooked tooth from the soil. Somewhere to my right, the dog's growl rose. To my left, his footsteps, always near, never tired. I broke into a clearing at last, gasping, stumbling into open air. The moon hung low, swollen, a sickly yellow that painted everything the color of old parchment. In the center of the clearing, a tree stood apart from the others, enormous, ancient. its bark split and furrowed like scar tissue, its limbs twisting upward in shapes that looked almost human, arms raised in silent screams, and carved deep into its trunk were words. "You came back." I staggered closer. My fingertips brushed the grooves, fresh. The edges of the letters bled sap that smelled of iron. The tree pulsed faintly beneath my hand, warm, alive, beating like a heart. "Beautiful, isn't it?" His voice slithered across the clearing. I spun. He stood at the edge, his body half in shadow, half in that false moonlight. The dog padded forward, its claws sinking noiselessly into the soil. "This is where they keep us," he said. "Every man, every woman, every soul that ever wandered too far. They root us, they drink us. They let us wear the skin until it rots, then they take another." His smile split wider. The skin around his mouth cracked, stretching, until the grin ran ear to ear. The glow in his eyes pulsed like embers, sinking with the slow throb of the tree. "You'll see soon enough." The roots beneath me shifted. Slowly, deliberately, they rose, wrapping around my ankles, curling cold and slick against my skin. I tore at them, clawed, but the more I fought, the tighter they coiled. One root slid higher, pressing into the scar at my neck. My vision blurred, my pulse hammered. The forest wanted me, not dead, but planted. "No!" I gasped, digging nails into the bark, trying to pry myself free. He stepped closer, the dog at his heel, both of them watching as though this was a ritual older than memory. His voice softened, almost tender. "Sleep light." The words seeped into me, deeper than the wound, deeper than the bone. My eyelids grew heavy, my muscles slack. The forest hummed, low and deep, the sound of earth shifting, of rivers cutting stone. And in that fading edge of consciousness, I saw them. Faces in the bark, dozens, hundreds. Eyes hollow, mouths open, their silent screams stretched across the trunk. One face I knew, Joe. His features warped, half swallowed, his mouth still moving soundlessly, as if begging me not to follow. The roots pulled harder. My body sank inch by inch into the soil. Cold seeped into my veins. The forest was taking me. I forced my eyes open one last time. He stood only feet away now, head tilted, watching me drown in dirt. His grin glistened wet. The dog's eyes burned. And then movement. Not from them, from behind. A flicker of light, a lantern swinging, a human voice calling through the trees. "Hello, is someone out here?" The roots paused. The hum broke. For a single heartbeat, the forest stilled. The lantern swung in the dark like a trembling sun. Its glow carved a thin path through the trees, scattering the shadows that had closed so tight around me. A man stepped into the clearing, tall, his ranger's jacket catching the pale yellow light. His face was drawn, lined by years of patrols, but his eyes were steady as they fixed on me, sinking into the earth. "What the hell?" His words cut short when he saw the roots coiled up my legs. He dropped the lantern into the grass and ran forward, pulling at the soil with bare hands. "Hold on, I've got you." The forest groaned. The tree shuddered. The roots tightened as if angered by the interruption. The bark faces writhed, their mouths opening wider, gasping silent warnings. Behind him, my friend, or what wore him, stood still, watching. The dog's eyes burned brighter, its growl low, vibrating in my bones. "You shouldn't have come," my friend said softly. The ranger froze, glancing back, his face drained of color. "What the hell are you?" The grin widened. "A vessel, and soon he will be too." The roots jerked me deeper. Soil filled my mouth, choking me with the taste of copper and moss. My hands clawed at the air. The ranger cursed, drew a knife from his belt, and began hacking at the roots. Sap sprayed, thick and black, spattering across his sleeves. The roots writhed, shrieking in a pitchless howl that seemed to come from the entire forest at once. The dog lunged. The ranger swung his knife instinctively. The blade met fur and flesh, but instead of blood, a spray of ash burst out. The creature recoiled, snarling, its body flickering like a projection. For a heartbeat, it had no shape at all, just bones wrapped in smoke. Then it snapped back into form, crouching low, circling. "Cut him free!" my friend hissed, his voice cracking into 2, then 3, then dozens of overlapping whispers. "Cut him free, and he'll join me sooner." The ranger ignored him, sawing furiously at the roots. One snapped, recoiling like a severed serpent. My leg tore free. I gasped, dirt pouring from my mouth. Lungs screaming for air. Another snap, another limb loosened. The ground beneath me trembled, resisting, desperate to keep what it had claimed. The faces in the bark shrieked silently, stretching, splitting wider as if in pain. Sap poured like blood. And then, with one final slash, the last root gave way. I rolled free, coughing, clawing at the ground to drag myself clear. The forest roared, not the wind, not animals. The land itself screamed in fury. Leaves rattled though there was no breeze. Branches clashed like swords. The creek surged, spilling over its banks, frothing red as though veins had burst. The ranger hauled me to my feet. "Move!" he barked. His voice cut through the chaos. Sharp, alive, real. We staggered toward the tree line. But my friend blocked the path. His body twitched as if the skin didn't quite fit anymore. His head tilted, jerking side to side. His voice carried across the clearing, low and certain. "You'll never leave. Not both of you. The forest only lets one go." The ranger raised his knife, breath ragged, eyes wide. "Then I'll carve a way through." The dog crouched to spring. The tree shuddered again, roots writhing beneath the soil, ready to reclaim me. And all around us, the forest waited, breath held, as though savoring the choice about to be made. I looked at my friend, or what remained of him, and I realized the truth. If the forest had claimed him fully, he wasn't coming back. And if I hesitated now, neither was I. The ranger shifted beside me, tightening his grip on the knife. "Tell me," he muttered, eyes locked on the figure blocking our way, "is that thing still your friend?" My throat burned. My scar pulsed. I couldn't answer, because the truth was worse than yes or no. The truth was, it was both. The clearing held its breath. The ranger's knife gleamed faintly in the trembling lantern light. My friend, if that's what he still was, stood unmoving except for the slow twitch of his jaw, the wrong angle of his smile, and beneath the soil the roots shifted like serpents preparing to strike again. The dog growled low, eyes glowing ember red. My scar throbbed in rhythm with that growl, as if the forest had wired its heartbeat into my veins. The ranger leaned toward me, voice barely above a whisper. "If we rush him together, we might break through." But my friend tilted his head and spoke in a voice that was not entirely his own. "Run if you want. The forest doesn't care. It will keep one, just one. The rest stay in the bark." The words made the faces in the trees shiver, mouths opening wider, stretching the grain as though they hungered for air. Sap dripped steadily, pooling at the roots. It smelled of rot and blood. My friend stepped closer. His feet didn't disturb the soil. They hovered, barely grazing the ground. His grin widened, tearing faint cracks up into his cheeks. "Choose," he whispered, "him or me." The ranger's jaw clenched. He raised his knife. "I'll take him down. When I do, you run. Don't stop. Don't look back." But I couldn't move. My mind twisted between memories, our fishing trips, our laughter, his voice calling me brother, and the thing standing before me, face stretched, body rippling with shadows beneath the skin. And then my friend's eyes flickered, just for a second. The glow faltered and I saw something trapped behind it. His real eyes, wide, begging. He mouthed a single word: "Help." The ranger lunged. The dog sprang at him, a blur of teeth and fur. The knife slashed through the air, catching its flank. Ash burst like smoke, but the creature didn't fall. It snapped at the blade, jaws unhinging wider than bone should allow. The ranger shouted, fighting it off, the knife clattering against glowing teeth. My friend staggered as if struck too, his body convulsing. The forest shrieked, every tree groaning, every root writhing. I stumbled forward, torn between them. My friend dropped to his knees, clawing at his chest, his voice splitting into two warring tones, one human, one not. "Pull me out," he cried, his real voice breaking through. "Before it takes me," the shadow voice roared louder, drowning him. "He is ours!" Roots shot up from the soil, lashing around his arms, his torso, his neck. They dragged him back toward the bleeding tree. His mouth opened wide, a scream caught between man and monster. The ranger wrestled the dog, slashing, shoving blood. His this time, soaking his sleeve. He shouted at me through the chaos. "Don't let it take him! Do something!" I froze. My scar burned like fire. The forest whispered in my skull, "Choose, one to save, one to keep." If I reached for him, I might be dragged into the bark myself. If I turned away, I might live. But he'd be swallowed, just another face carved into that cursed tree. My friend's eyes locked on mine, wide with terror, human again. "Please," he choked, "don't let me." The roots tightened, his voice cut off, his body convulsed. The bark split wider, ready to drink him whole. The ranger roared as the dog drove him to the ground. His knife flashed in the lantern light. My friend screamed inside me and outside me both. The forest waited, its breath hot on my neck, hungry for the choice, and my hands moved toward him. I dove toward him, clawing at the roots that bound his chest, his throat, his face already half drawn into the bleeding bark. My nails tore, my palms shredded, but I didn't stop. "Hold on," I screamed, though the forest tried to drown my words with its thunderous groan. His eyes met mine, wide, human, terrified. For an instant, he was truly there, not the vessel, not the mask, just my friend, begging. "Don't let go," he rasped. The ranger's knife flashed again behind me, the dog shrieking in ash and smoke. But I barely heard it. Every breath in me belonged to this struggle. Roots coiled tighter, splitting his skin, drawing him inch by inch into the tree's gaping wound. Sap gushed like blood. The faces in the bark writhed, mouths widening to swallow. I wrapped my arms under his shoulders and pulled with everything I had. My scar burned so hot it felt as though the forest had set fire inside me. My muscles screamed, my lungs tore, but he moved. The roots groaned, stretched, snapped one by one under the weight of my desperation. "Almost," I shouted. His chest cleared the bark, then his arms. I yanked again, veins bursting in my temples, and with a final tearing shriek, the forest let go. We collapsed into the dirt, both of us heaving, covered in sap that steamed black in the moonlight. He lay on his back, trembling, eyes rolling, his body convulsing as if the forest still fought inside him. The tree shuddered in fury. Roots whipped across the clearing, striking at the ground, at us, at the ranger still wrestling the fading shape of the dog. The bark faces screamed, mouths stretching until the tree split down the center with a thunderclap. From its core poured a darkness thicker than shadow, spilling like smoke, writhing upward into a shape too vast to name. The ranger staggered to my side, blood soaking his arm. "Run!" he roared. "Both of you, now!" But the forest had no intention of letting us go. The smoke towered, forming a vast, faceless head, eyes like hollow moons glaring down. Its voice came from everywhere, inside my ears, my chest, my scar. "Only one leaves." The ranger shoved me hard. "Take him! I'll hold it!" He raised his knife against a shadow that could not bleed. His lantern blazed suddenly brighter, a defiance against the dark. The thing shrieked, recoiling, but only for a heartbeat. I hauled my friend to his feet, his body trembling, barely able to stand. We staggered toward the trees, toward the faint line of the trail, the ranger's battle roaring behind us, his knife clanging against roots, his voice bellowing curses that broke into ragged screams. We burst into the undergrowth, branches tearing our faces, the forest howling in pursuit. My scar split open, hot blood running down my chest as if marking me again. But I didn't stop. We crashed through brush, stumbled over roots until the road, gravel underfoot, the pale dawn breaking in the east. We collapsed against the truck, gasping, sobbing, the forest behind us groaning in defeat, or perhaps in patience, because as I looked back, I saw no trees, no roots, no monster, just quiet woods swaying in the morning breeze, innocent, eternal. The ranger never emerged. We never spoke of him. We barely spoke at all. Weeks passed, the wounds healed, at least the ones flesh could bear, but the scar at my neck never closed again. It bleeds sometimes without reason, staining my shirt in the middle of the day. My friend avoids mirrors. He says when he looks too long, he sees someone else looking back. And at night, when the world is still, we both hear the same whisper from under the floorboards, from the trees beyond the windows, from the dark itself. Sleep light. The forest does not forget. It does not forgive. It only waits. And one day it will call us back.